Hello everybody, I am Ulrich with Fix It Auto, and today I'm going to be doing the next step in my Supernatural Tribute car. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be disassembling the entire front end. So instead of renting a forklift to be able to take the frame off of the body, what I'm going to be doing instead is I'm going to slowly start disassembling some mounts and then doing some rust repair. I'm going to be going over it with a wire wheel tool. So this is the only special tool that I actually had because I don't have any other special tools. I don't have a crane, I don't have a forklift. I don't have any of those other stuff, and most people do not. So instead, I'm just going to be doing it like most other people would be doing it if they want to do a frame-off restoration. And I'm just going to be going along, spending a lot of time going over it with a wire wheel, with a wire brush, and with some wire attachments for a drill. And I'm going to see if I can get the frame all rust-free, and then going underneath and applying a wax epoxy. And so I'll be doing a video on that later. So in the meantime, I'm going to be showing you how to disassemble the front with the fenders and everything already off. That's going to be nice for you guys to see anyways, because you won't have the fender well or anything in the way to be able to see what to do in this instance. So I'm going to start by taking off the tire and we'll go from there. So the disc brakes and calipers and pretty much this entire thing is brand new. And if you haven't seen the video to that, I'll be sure to link that down in the description down below. But I will just be removing the spindle as a whole unit. So I'm just going to be careful because the coil spring is under a lot of pressure. And I just want to make sure that doesn't fly out and hurt me or break something else in the shop. So I'm going to first take out the shock from underneath. Here is the coil spring. The way that it works is that there is a coil spring in between the frame and the lower control arm, and that is held in using the knuckle, the strut rod. It's just being held in general by a whole bunch of components. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take out the shock that's in there, and you can do that by undoing this bolt up here and 2 bolts on the bottom of the lower control arm. And so with the 9/16 socket, I can undo this part with ease. And from underneath there are 2 1/2-inch bolts. And then the shock will slide right out. Just like that. Now getting the coil spring off is going to be the most challenging. That's actually the most dangerous part of this all, because there's so much tension in the spring as it is. And if you just try to take it off, then it's just going to shoot out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a jack and I'm going to put it underneath and I'm going to jack up the lower control arm until there's a little bit of tension on the spring, and see if I can get the lower ball joint and the upper ball joint off of the spindle, and lower the jack so that way I could slowly get the tension off of the spring and then be able to take it out. So with the jacks underneath, I'm just going to raise this up just a little bit, straighten out these cotter pins. I actually think I can slip this out. Yep, without a set of pliers. Next is this one right down here. Just gotta straighten this one out. That's the second cotter pin. That was easy. I'm gonna leave it so there's a little bit left here. Leave it a little loose in there, and then now, here's where you grab your favorite hammer and whack this thing out. There we go, that one's broken loose. I also can't forget that with a 1/2-inch socket, I'm going to remove the banjo bolt that is holding on the brake line to the brake caliper. So I'll go ahead and loosen that bolt. There you go. What I usually like to do is to put the brake line up and out of the way so it's not dripping. And there's no brake fluid in my lines anyways because I just replaced the master cylinder with a brake booster. So instead, I like to put both the crush washers back on and put it back in the slot so that way I don't lose where it goes. Then of course we can't forget to remove the tie rod. There we go. Move the cotter pin from there. Remove the castle nut. And then just hammer this one out as well. And then we could try to just loosen this up the rest of the way. And then loosen this bottom one up the rest of the way as well. And now with the entire knuckle out, an 11/16 socket, I can remove the strut rod. And it does spin. The first one didn't spin, but this one does spin, so I'll get a ratchet underneath. That's one strut bolt out. And then remove the sway bar link using a 9/16 socket. You'll need a wrench underneath. With all that off, we just slowly lower the jack. And with a pry bar, just take the spring the rest of the way off. Now the upper and lower control arms I will be taking to a shop in order to get these bushings pressed out, because with a hammer it's going to take a lot. Like, you can try it yourself, but to make it easier on myself, I'm going to just take it to a shop. And then the upper and lower control arms are also going to a powder coating place to get it media blasted and powder coated. But to remove this, first of all, back in the 60s, there was a recall on the motor mounts of a bunch of Chevy vehicles, a bunch of GM vehicles. So they put these in place that in case the motor mounts failed, that the upper control arm and the frame will save you before you're dead in the road. But to remove it, it's very simple. All it is a cotter pin over here, which you just have to remove. And then this pin slides out, and then this just comes right off. Before you also take this out, you want to take note if there's any alignment shims, which I have 3 over here. So I'll be sure to put these 3 back over here when I put this back together. Besides that, it's just 2 nuts over here. The easiest way that I've found to take this off is to grab 11/16 short socket with a ratchet and then place it on this end, and then a ratcheting wrench, or just even a regular wrench. If you don't have one, it'll just take a little bit more time, and this should just come off. And then here was the opposite. Just get the ratchet and socket on this end, and then just hold it in place over here. Make sure you don't lose those alignment shims. You want to get as close to alignment as possible when you roll this into the shop. Now over here, we could just pinch the cotter pin. Just like that, we could take the cotter pin out, push this pin out, and then this can come out. I'm just going to put this back in so I don't lose it. And I'll be putting a new cotter pin in. But now, the upper control arm can come up and out of the way. And just so I don't lose where these bolts go, I'll be putting them back into place. And then have my 3 alignment shims ready to go. And with a 29mm socket, I'm going to be removing the strut rod. Now this is the sway bar. I'll also be taking this out in order to get media blasted and powder coated. But after removing the sway bar links, the only thing that's holding it on is this bushing in this bracket, which are 1/2-inch bolts. So all I gotta do is remove those. I have a 1/2-inch wrench on top. And then you just have to do it the same the other side, and then you should be able to remove the sway bar. Once you get the sway bar loose, then all you have to do is remove it. The pattern, it goes through there, through this hole, onto the other side. So you just have to twist and turn it until eventually it slides all the way out. In order for me to be able to remove it, I got to take out the driver's side, which I will be doing off camera. That way I could get this done a lot quicker, and that way parts can start going to get powder coated, and the bushings can get removed from the shop. Due to difficult angles, I was not able to show you, but there's this long bolt that there's like this little hole over here. You have to stick a socket. For me, it was I used a 29mm, and it was a little too big. That's why you see it stripped along the sides, but it did the job because I don't have any other size that would fit. And then I used a 1 1/8 wrench on the other side and hammered a few times with the ratchet over here. I put the ratchet on there, hammered the ratchet, and then loosened it up, and then I was able to take this the rest of the way out. And with that bolt out, the lower control arm can just come right out. Next, I'm going to want to try to remove both the inner and the outer tie rod, or inner and outer tie rod, as a whole, so that way I can get the alignment pretty spot on. I did notice that here I am missing a cotter pin, but you do need to remove one if you have one, and I'm missing a cotter pin up here as well, because I'm going to be removing the center link and getting that blasted and powder coated as well. So I'm going to try to just take an impact drill, remove the castle nut, and then hammer it out. So to remove the center link, I'm going to remove this 3/4 castle nut and then hammer it out. Just like that. Then all I got to do is repeat all the same stuff on the other side All I gotta do is do all the same steps on the other side, and then I'm pretty much done. The ball joints to these are easy to take off. All it is 3 bolts, as you can see here, and 3 nuts. So you'll have to have a wrench on one side and then socket and ratchet on the other side. And for the lower, you'll have to remove this nut right up here, and then these 2 bolts that are right over here, and then you'll have the nut on the inside. The ball joint out, just like that. And that's it for the lower control arm for now. Then the ball joint can come right out. And that's it for the disassembly, everybody. We got the upper and lower control arm out, we got the coil spring out, we got the strut rod, the sway bar links. The sway bar I'll be taking out when I do the other side off camera, as well as the center link. I'll be taking those out so that way those and the upper and lower control arms can go get media blasted and get powder coated. And then these are also going to a shop in order to get the bushings pressed out and the new ones pressed back in order to make my life a little bit easier. And then of course I'll be going through, taking my sweet time in order to make sure that all the rust, what's not supposed to be on the frame, is off. And I'm going to be sanding it down and then rattle canning it with some chassis paint to get kind of similar to what this looks like. I did just a test. I used a wire wheel on an angle grinder and just to see what it looks like, and so far so good. I like the way that that's going to look. So I'll be doing that all along. I'll be removing the body mounts, lifting the body up just a little bit, and then sanding it all down, painting it, and then putting new body mounts on there, and then going all around the car. So I'll be doing that, and then after I get the front end already built back together, then I'm going to move on to the rear end. I'm going to take off the rear end, and I'm going to put new shocks. I'm going to paint the rear end, make it look all nice. I'm debating whether or not I should just strip it all apart, get it powder coated, and then put it back together. The results will be a lot better. I'm just debating whether or not I'll have the time to do it, because I'm trying to get this done this year, as well as I'm going to be pulling the engine and transmission out to work on it outside, putting the car completely together, getting the entire car media blasted, primered, and painted all together, all at the same time while it's all together. And then I'll move on to the interior when I receive the final product. And then the last thing I'm going to do is drop the engine and transmission in. So to stay tuned for all that. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you do like the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to help this channel grow, then please give it a like, subscribe, and share. And let me know what you guys think down in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching.